Hey, Timothy Darrell Young, 15-year TI. Endurer of remote torture, neurolinguistic programming, often less than like 6 to 8 words. There's been some visual um, communication. The content is still really hostile. Of all of the possible electromagnetic beings or perps that showed up, I hope it wasn't just say and do the opposite, but they often do that. There was some expressed intent from somebody that didn't want to try and like set me up for crime, as more reason to torture me. The incessant spreading lies about my family and I out to people who have, that are in the beast system, have like black dark web apps they can download on their phone to hit me with, call out a hit on their cell phone for the TI because they believe some community slander about them, and I'm like in an outpatient mental health facility getting hit with like sensations in my leg, stuff like that from people's cell phones because they believe the lies that they were told by EMF perpetrators, community-based agents, and the electric core and other stuff. So the increased numbers of adolescent suicide is because of broadcasting. The youth of America and the world killing themselves in increased numbers in their late teens and early 20s because in addition to the mental health ground zero for a lot of people anyways in the early 20s, that's when the intelligence community and people with broadcast capabilities often take your pride, your joy, your beautiful son or daughter. After you shuffle them off to college, they'll steal them with remote technology in their dorm, rape them in a snuff film, more or less, and make them kill themselves so that the criminals never are known, let alone prosecuted. But if your son or daughter has died from suicide in the last like 4 years in Oregon, it maybe had mental illness, maybe didn't, chances are there's a dramatic likelihood, increased potential they were remote suicided, remote tortured, induced to suicide from these criminal gangs with those headsets. I saw a chance to look at a little bit of Richard Bruce, who's a good Christian man who's extremely getting taken advantage of. Like nobody in his remote neural monitoring perping him is God or Jesus. But because he had all of that thorough biblical reading and socio-psychological infrastructure, a handler and a monitor can come right in to a guy like Richard Bruce, targeted individual in LA on YouTube, and do what he's being done to me is being done to Bruce. Like when he, it's a disgusting thing to get into human trafficking like this and do these things to others. You really do have to be a sociopath, a psychopath, or a narcissist. Or you would probably love your job even more, torturing people like this, if you were one of those qualifiers. None of that qualifies to be Jesus or God or good, but they'll fake it in really elaborate ways. As Richard Bruce is talking about his God and this and that, in my art, I'm watching this because he's being handled. Because Richard Bruce doesn't have a God. He has military contractors and other ways to describe these parasitic relationships and getting, put on the TI system for being a whistleblower, an activist, a political dissident. So I see some of my own tendencies as a do-gooder type white guy in Richard Bruce, and as I'm like watching some of his YouTube yesterday, some of my perps are pointing to their truth, that the guys talking into his head aren't Jesus. That's the king of the heathens. That's some guy on his headgear with a federal contract on Bruce, faking deity, but it's really war crime, remote torture, Satanism, and completely hollow. It's not Jesus. It's never gonna be. And I'm sorry if that's abrasive for people that grew up inside the church. You're all getting prepared to be handled. I've seen some Mockingbird or otherwise big box churches of things you think you want. Like, try being handled for 15 years and be like, do I really want Jesus to take the wheel? Treated like a child every 15 to 20 seconds, told what to do, every part of your life mismanaged for Satanism. And all those voices in those heads of those enemy combatants in the Middle East were not the voice of Allah, too, in the same logic. And that's what this is. It's not false savior time from somebody on their headgear, or they'll just keep calling you that before they suicide you. Or, if you die from broadcasting, oh, that was a god of love, not a political dissident, tortured puppet TI, snuff film survivor, among other criteria. So I'm doing okay. It's about 6 minutes into this video. I'll try and maybe get it longer. So Richard Bruce is extremely getting taken advantage of by unscrupulous characters that are likely sociopaths, and definitely not his Lord and Savior, Jesus. But he's being misled to think that there's deity or good or Christian in any of his targeted individual program. And when I was watching some of his stuff, his handler's pissed that he still believes in God. And that's not good. Like, you would think you get tricked there with the handling and the EMF perping and remote torture and melding that Satanism with, oh, let's let Jesus take the wheel. You don't want that. But Richard Bruce, some of my perps were being critical of Richard Bruce's perps, calling him, he's not the son of God, he's the king of the heathens, the guy that has his remote neural monitoring. I advised him to stop watching Mockingbird Media. Like, he was picking off images and like trying to be like, that's a reptile. Like, there's so much deception in making the TI deceived that we in turn can mislead, and that's a real danger. I've had some of that heavy reptilian content, but it's faked. It's these people on headgears for the most part. I doubt I've met a real reptilian in my 15 years entirely. What else about Richard Bruce and I? He was documenting his plight in LA. He's really been sensitized. Like, he's had to maybe diffuse some of his triggers that they were trying to use against him. Like, he thought he may, or like a perp probably was trying to find a vulnerability in his consciousness about it. The shape of his nose, he had to bring that up, and he was being really self-critical. And other perps in my R&M were like, we don't like it when the TIs like take it upon themselves, think that they're being punished or it's their fault. These people are sociopaths filling out a contract, among other criteria. But there was something else that I wanted to remember about Richard Bruce. Oh, I told them about the openbci.com headgear in a tweet or a YouTube comment. I said I identified with him. He reminds me of like folks of like my father's stock, like never cheat on their taxes, like will show up and help out at a church bake-off in a pinch, and will be Christian disposition pleasant to you on the golf course and stuff. And Richard Bruce had a capability of doing something really good in the world, concepts applied Christianity, and that's why he was made a TI with some of the assessment of the perps as I was watching, that are perping me, that I was similar to me, that was watching Richard Bruce's video. I mean, he was talking about politics and homelessness, and he would have, he was in a short interview, he was talking about, with all this stuff, we could make housing for the homeless here very easily, and in a long-term project management kind of thing, like working with city councils, getting funding together, da-da-da-da-da. Richard Bruce is the kind of man who could have done that. Instead, because he wanted to solve the homeless crisis, among other things, he's made homeless. It's some of the tortures, but Richard Bruce doesn't know about openbci.com and the headgear yet, I think. folks being human traffickers, sociopaths of me are critical of those that are being sociopathic, human trafficker, torturous of Richard Bruce. He's a good man. I could read it on his face. Like, he would be a man I would take a loan from. That'd be a man that I would feel okay leaving my kids with at swim practice. That would be a man that, you know, if I saw working at a garage sale or yard sale, I would enjoy a pleasant conversation with that guy on a Saturday afternoon and think good about my country. Let me spend a little time with a guy like Richard Bruce, even in passing. And they fucked him because he was too pretty for prison. He's too good. He's too Christian for this Satanism. And that's all mind control telepathy is. So I feel a lot of empathy. I don't want to get like emotional. It's such a drain. Now that I a little bit know more about stuff. But I have empathy and compassion for Richard Bruce. And he's being rigorously tortured. Oh, okay. So like there's a dream state, like with the brain-computer interfaces and manipulation of dreamscape and all this stuff. I mean, they act like they're stupid. They're not. They're really smart, and particularly espionage ways. I can be interviewed in a sort of not conscious state where I always tell the truth. And I'm always trying to tell the truth as best I can to people that are lying to me, unfortunately. Like Richard Bruce. They know beyond a shadow of a doubt, like when I'm in a state of non-consciousness and no lie, that I don't believe in God. So I actually have a leg up with people like my handlers, possibly, or at least jokes and diplomacy, humor with sociopaths on my R&M, hey. And then the psychopath, you gotta have the K-12 records, so. Anyways, and the narcissist, like, I'm just not gonna bite. That just says to me that you guys don't want to give up herping on me yet, but I'm a lot like Richard Bruce also. Like, he could have spent 3 years of a professional career doing project management and gotten a $400 million civic investment into housing for the homeless. And boom. So they enslaved him and made him homeless instead. But this may sound abrasive and weird, and I'll probably try and let this counter surveillance sort of go for the day and make it long. I feel like, as a Buddhist who knows I'm synthetically telepathic, who knows this is EMF hijinks, understatement, that I'm a deep state target, that I was a political dissident, the Buddhism helped me endure the torture, I have after death plans to try and get out of incarnating as best I can. My perpetrator gang and my handler, they all know beyond a shadow of a doubt I don't believe in God. And I actually have a leg up in survivability, I feel like, and not being as misled or completely humiliated in that, as opposed to maybe where Richard Bruce is right about now. So I'm trying to reach out to him. My fucking YouTube video doesn't even show up in Google searches. Like, if you're finding this, you're finding it on Bing. And then I saw, like, I logged into it at like a community college, and it didn't even look like my front picture or the video is even loaded correctly. I don't quite have an IT staff to figure it out for me, but yeah, it's like, if you're seeing these videos, you're getting it from my Twitter account or Bing. Jugal can't even handle the Holocaust. They don't even want to record it. But that's what's happening. This slow kill, Richard Bruce and I. That's a good Christian man. That guy would have changed the world. Concepts applied. So they enslaved him and tortured him and made him TI instead. I'm a lot like Richard Bruce in a lot of ways. He reminds me of dudes I'm related to. My dad and shit like that. Honest. And that's only used against us from the EMF. Just more sheep to mutilate and take advantage of. Is some of my opinions, at least this day, August 12th, 2019. So, and I'm not Richard Bruce's God, because Richard Bruce doesn't have a God, because there's no such thing. But psychological operations and sender-receiver relationships with people on their headgears in other locations who are deceptive, incessant, criminal, and unscrupulous have the undue influence, unholy ability to fake it And unless you get educated, like Kevin Christian and I have tried to help out with other TI, you can be misled so severely, beyond deadly. And it's a war crime, it's a crime against humanity, and it's a crime against creation. None of those voices talking to Richard Bruce or any of us are angels. Nope, nobody using NLP in my head's an angel. No, that's synthetic telepathy. I'm a deep state target. That's torture, not angels singing. And what made me super, or a 1%, was stripped and destroyed. Big picture thinking and a good reader and executive function and leadership. Because I underestimated things like the intelligence outfit. Somebody may have disciplined my handler recently in a pure sort of above it all way that I hope is effective, that this perpetrator group ceases and desists from child endangerment, arranged sex crime, fucking deep faked porn of sex crime that really doesn't happen when I won't cooperate, to just further make me more vulnerable, and people want to jump on their cell phone and hang out in the dentist parking lot behind this mental health facility and shoot things into my leg or whatever. Like, stop. You're putting my life at risk. And there was somebody, like, at least by appearance in the last 24, 48 hours, like, you know, I set people up for crimes or whatnot, but I don't want to set you up for crimes, so I'm not gonna. And then, so that may have been one of the many perps, not electromagnetic beings, that, but there's somebody in sort of a sociopath kind of way, like, ha 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 ha, like, backslappy high-fivey, and it may have been effective. Somebody may have sort of disciplined my handler to stop faking the appearance of kids trying to make, like, sexual advances to me or NLP shit like that. I'm not going to participate. It's disgusting. It's crime. It's against Buddhism. And here's some of my summation on sex that is crime and is not crime. 100% of the sex that I've had in my life has been consensual and not crime. Rectal torture, that's not really sex, and that's, for them it may be, but anyways, separate issue. It's an orgasm. It's basically the same. I mean, particularly if you're not on your headgear. For people that would have had predispositions to wanting to commit sex crime, like the same orgasm to legal porn instead, like, that's not a huge leap to maintain civility, safety, dignity, and the innocence of the child in some cases, for people that are attracted to, like, kids. Like, I don't have a lot of empathy for the sex criminal, is maybe what I'm getting to. And have enjoyed legal porn, as many American men do. It keeps my mind able to focus on other things in the youth biological process. By the time we're 8, I mean, it's like, there was some study, but for the adolescent male mind, we were thinking about the opposite sex like once every 4 seconds or something ridiculously high volume for that. So I was once a young man and whatnot, and in order to think about other things, like what's in my textbook in front of me, like, instead of the co-ed that has the knife's perfume on next to me or whatnot, in accordance with the Surgeon General, and releasing a gland in some, I mean, it's almost personal hygiene and functionality in a man's mind, that they have regular orgasms that are legal, be it masturbation rather than a lot of alternatives. That's a lot safer. And then you're free to think about other things too. Like, pure men that may be 40 that can vaguely remember what their mind was like at 18, like, it's really important that they get a chance to, regulate themselves, so that they, young men are constantly thinking about women. It's almost disabling. And, there's other things to think about. So Surgeon General advice on that stuff. And the people that are making human beings porn by remote torture, becoming an EMF monitor of consciousness, and degrading the human condition from that vantage point of EMF perpetrating sex. It's like they can't even be stopped structurally. I mean, I've been able to mitigate with the N52 level magnet and try and pass that information off to other TI, but I'm not getting a free ad space on CNN. I mean, I don't even want to make any money off it. I want people to have the device, and I can't spread the information as much as I would. Hope outfits that, you know, prosecute crimes and shit like the FBI are like, good job. That's not just Mr. Junior Detective. Let me mislead you with crime that can't be enforced in the EMF. Like, I actually did a better job than the FBI in that regard. As one man. I don't even accept a fucking paycheck. People that know about the N52 level magnet aren't going to get rectal raped anymore. I did that for me and them. Where were you guys? Raping? So, I'll try not to be too angry or aim to humiliate, or some of the trauma-based mind control patterns I've seen still persisting in Dr. Horton. She's biting off more than she can chew. But yeah, my videos aren't even coming up in Google. You're getting this from Bing or Twitter. Yeah, maybe I'll be comfortable with some dead air. It's about 20 minutes into this video. Sort of let it go. Let you watch me in the morning. So Richard Bruce. Yeah, some of the stuff where, like, I've been watching Heavy T, and he's saying things on his YouTube about what's going on with him, and my perps translating for what that really means, concepts applied in language I understand. Like, Heavy T was saying, like, you know, you don't know me, and like some thing I've said too at some point is a TI, and what my perps were trying to say is that's anyways, I'll skip over that part. Oh, he was okay. I'll say it. Like, Heavy T was talking about he was getting fired from his job. They had moved in a perp as his wife in his home. Stuff was getting stolen. His relationship with his daughter was estranged. He was, I think, hearing voices, definitely becoming aware as in a TI. Maybe going to some early snake oil sales that perps misled him about to try and mitigate the exposure to the broadcast. Like, I had some of that early on too. It just makes you look more like an idiot to them. Like Kevin Christian describes, like somebody was trying to tell me Tiger's Eye would fucking help me with my problems. Remedy or solution for a problem that really isn't remedy or solution. And I saw a YouTube of maybe Heavy T talking about some things that probably won't really help at all with us being broadcast. Like N52 level magnets are going to be more effective than anything Tiger's Eye. Lead clothes to stop remote torture from electromagnetic terrorism are going to be, or have been, more effective for me than any Technicolor coat or whatever. And spreading out that advice as best I can to other TI is something I want to do. And I'm pretty a real direct hit. Otherwise, seeing the results of what these perps who have 9 days in a week, because they don't have to sleep, like Kevin Christian describes, their efforts to make sure I don't catch up with search engines, like for the 8 or 9 hours I'm asleep at night and they're awake. seeing the results of their incessant work over the last couple of years. I've even had my YouTube channel like zero, not a single click on my YouTube channel came from Google. They're all coming from Bing, or who still clicks from my Twitter account, which is shadow banned. And yeah, I clicked on it, this YouTube account, not on the surface of what I can see off the Wi-Fi at my house at a PCC school down the road, and the videos wouldn't even show up. The censorship that I'm enduring, I'm not being that successful as maybe I hoped I would be able to. So, and then I recently shut down my and I guess they can in 30 seconds they can redirect this thing, but the second secret internet that can carry the traffic of electromagnetic beings, like enough data shooting through a portal in a website that would carry like 50 human consciousnesses to Hillsborough so that they could walk around and talk shit about yours truly or whatever. I was checking on my old website, and somebody had made a citation or note out of maybe computer science major benevolence to let me know, or who was checking out my old website. I can turn it back on. They can redirect this in 30 seconds is what the perpetrators are telling me here as I sit with my website turned off. They were using like brain-computer interface, like electromagnetic frequency, broadcast levels of data. They were streaming that shit or directing it right through my old website just to rub it in my fucking face. They did that at my first website in, it was my opus. It was my life's work on higher ed writing. I've done a lot more, and a lot of it was collection of links that already existed out on cyberspace. But they did that to me in 2016. I shut down the website, and I haven't turned it back on. This one I could turn back on. And they could take that function of the invisible internet that you have to be like a broadcast to see, and in 30 seconds pull it off Tim DeYoung BS MPA or whatever at WordPress and put it onto another website. I noticed it because it came up in a search criteria that it was like in the top 250th website in the world for this particular type of internet traffic, because they're moving real people, because it's people's like headgear consciousness shooting through that broadcast second secret internet. They were just lacing it over the front of my website just to fuck with me even more as a TI, like, oh, we'll just shoot it through right his own fucking website. So in problem, reaction, solution kind of thinking, they created a problem, so I turned off my website, was the reaction they were hoping. And then sitting here like, we can redirect that shit in like 30 seconds. But it was like, it came up in some kind of search criteria that it was like the highest traffic website, top 250th in the world for this particular type of internet traffic, and it's people's. Soylent Green is people's. EMF broadcasts are real people in other locations. Okay, so this is approaching 30 minutes. I'll upload it. Good morning, West Coast. Good morning, Oregon. I love you. I want to endure. See, take it a decade at a time. My big goal is to make it to 50. I turned 40 this year, so yay.